Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And hello, everyone.
Screen to one screen when
Good morning, everyone. And I'm Dr. Valerie Ann Johnson, Chair of the African American Heritage Commission, welcoming you all to this quarterly meeting of our commission. I am gathering us in now, so the meeting has begun, and I thank you all for attending. Right now, since we are virtual, we do need to do our roll call, and I will be doing a roll call for commissioners before we get started officially. So, and all you need to do is say present or here. Dr. Tamara Holmes Brothers.
Present.
Reverend Dr. Pierre Crawford. The Honorable Pauline Hankins.
Present.
Dr. Johnson, I'm here. Elder Fondella Lee.
Present.
Dr. Leslie Mckesson.
Present.
Juanita Moore.
Present.
Dolores Rhodes. Edward Charles Robinson. And Tansy B. Wallace.
Present.
Thank you all so much. And I welcome you, especially our new commissioners, which we will formally introduce and welcome in a few minutes. Right now, what I'd like to do is, before we turn it over to our guest, Secretary Reed Wilson, to give his remarks, I did want to thank our special guests who will be introduced a little bit later. I'm glad that they're here from our American Indian Commission. And they will be bringing their own remarks to us shortly. Before we get started on any of this, as you know, many organizations start with the land acknowledgement. And I want to let everyone know that this is more than something that is just perfunctory. This is something that reminds us that we are in community with one another, with the people who were here before, who are still with us and will be here in the future. Oftentimes we relegate American Indians and indigenous people to a historic past, but they've always been here and they're with us now. We're glad that they are. And so we know that there are several groups and tribes that are represented here, primarily in where I am situated at Shaw University. The Tuscarora, the Meherrin, the Coharie are part of the peoples who were here. The Occaneechi Saponi are also part, and we've got many, many more indigenous groups that represent us across the state. And one of the things I hope we do as a commission, my commissioners, is to recognize that community. And as you go about your business, to know that we have a new sister commission and we want to work together in harmony with one another. At this point, I will turn it over to our secretary for the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources and a avid supporter of our commission, Mr. Reed Wilson.
Thank you very much, Dr. Johnson. It's good to see you and everyone else. Can you all hear me okay?
Can hear you fine and good to see you too.
All right, thanks. Well, thank you again. Want to also welcome new and reappointed members to this commission. We are glad you are with us and you are part of an amazing organization that gets so much accomplished. It's just truly incredible the work that the staff and the commission members do together. It is a very busy time at our department. You know, we have our rich history, our amazing natural areas, the arts and culture, so much going on. This happens to be the 50th anniversary of the creation of the Department of Cultural Resources. The natural side was put in about 7 years ago, but we're counting them as part of the 50th birthday too. So we're doing a lot to celebrate this fact and to bring attention to all the wonderful places and ideas that this department brings to the people of North Carolina. Plus, it's an exciting time because in the budget that was passed last year for these 2 years and the revised budget that was just recently passed, there are an incredible amount of what I think will be transformational investments across the department. Everything from the zoo to historic sites, well, just about every division will benefit from these investments, which means the people of North Carolina will benefit from those investments as well. And just like there's a lot going on with the department, there's an incredible amount going on with the African American Heritage Commission. And that doesn't happen without the permanent staff, the temporary staff, the consultants, the funders, the advisory committee, the fellows, the contractors, and the commission members. It's an amazing partnership, a whole lot of people getting things done, and particularly in a time when, for some of these months, the staff hasn't been full because of vacancies. It's remarkable how much has gotten done. So I want to express appreciation to everyone for being such a well-functioning team amid not only vacancies, but COVID-19 challenges and everything else. And I'm just excited about how much is going on with this commission and its work. And I'll probably leave some things out, but you know, the fact that we now have Africa to Carolina traveling exhibits at, I believe, 7 of our department sites in the eastern part of the state is wonderful. People will learn about that. Plus, I think, you know, we have a pending proposal with a foundation to provide significant funding to create permanent artwork at the points of disembarkation of Africans who were brought here against their will. Again, that would be a great way to sort of combine history, art, culture to tell a story that people need to know. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the progress on the Freedom Park Monument. Normally, in normal times, my office faces Jones Street in that big parking lot. Our office is being renovated. So for the past year, I've been on the back side of the building, which happens to look directly out on Freedom Park. And it's been incredible, really interesting to watch this construction project progress. And part of me felt like a 7-year-old boy again with tractors in my hands, watching the guys move the earth and all the other things they need to do to create this monument. And just about 10 days ago, and I was out last week, so I haven't seen progress this week. I haven't seen progress in about, can someone mute, please? I'm getting echo. Anyway, about 10 days ago, I saw the first of the panels that will be installed on these walkways leading to the Beacon of Freedom. And, you know, on each of these panels is an amazing quotation from a prominent North Carolina African-American leader, and people will be able to read these as they go towards the middle. And so I think it was 2 Fridays ago, it's the first time I saw these panels starting to be put into place, which is really major progress, and cement's being poured and all sorts of other stuff. So that is moving along. I also want to talk about the Civil Rights Trail. The 5th one will be unveiled this Thursday in Monroe, honoring the courageous young people who did swim in at the pool, which they were prohibited from entering. Again, this is the 5th one. I was honored to participate in the ceremonies for the third one in Shelby and the fourth one in Ocean City. Again, honoring courage and persistence and justice. These are just powerful, powerful events, poignant, especially when you meet the people who are now in their upper 70s or 80s who back then 50 or 60 years ago were doing these amazingly courageous things just so they could be treated fairly and equally. And these markers will be there for a long, long time so that people can learn some of that history that's so important about African-American heritage in this state. It's really what building community is all about, people coming together with a common cause and fighting for their rights and equality. So I want to thank the staff who've been working on that and the advisory committee. I think as we keep going towards the 50 sites that we eventually want to have, it's going to just become more and more powerful around the state. Also, I forget when this was, but not too long ago, I had a great visit to the Mars Hill Rosenwald School, which I know not only this commission, but also our Historic Preservation Office have been involved with. And it's just tremendous to see how that building, which was not habitable, not usable, it was in great disrepair, has been transformed now into just an amazing space as it was back when the building was first built. And the public school system in Madison County is going to be bringing their children there to learn about Rosenwald schools and what it was like in separate but unequal. The superintendent there is really committed to providing those lessons to the kids in that county and other counties if they want to go there. And I know we're working with lots of other Rosenwald school groups around the state, and I think that's incredibly important. I know there's more going on, but I also know you got a long agenda. But it's just so much success and progress that you all are creating. And I want to thank you for that and congratulate you for that. And as Dr. Johnson mentioned, now you have a sister commission, the American Indian Heritage Commission, which was created in the budget passed last November. And we're so excited that Curry Bird is our new director and that Quinn Godwin is our new associate director. They are going to do a phenomenal job, but do not be surprised if they call on you for advice and counsel, because I think they have a lot to gain from your insights and experiences and successes as they create and push this new commission forward. The 12 commissioners are named. And we are, I think, pointing towards the first meeting of that commission in October, but it's just really exciting to think that we will have these two really important commissions operating together in a blended sort of way. I just think, you all will be able to feed off of each other in the future and really highlight both African-American and American Indian history and culture across the state. And as Dr. Johnson said, it's not just the history, it's the people living today and the existing culture and the opportunities for tomorrow. So just really excited about both commissions moving forward. And I want to continue to be very involved with this commission and with the new one as well. I think it's really important work. So I will get out of your way, but thank you for this opportunity and thank you for all the great work you do for the people of North Carolina. Have a great meeting. I have to run to another one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, and thank you so much, Secretary Wilson. We appreciate your support and your remarks.
You are most welcome.
See you soon.
All right.
Before we go on further, two more commissioners have joined us. Dolores Rhodes, are you able to hear now?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I had to go out and come back in and do some work on my machine. But yes, I'm delighted to be with all of you this morning, and thank you for your patience and helping me get my audio working.
You're welcome. And we have Reverend Dr. Pierre Crawford.
Good morning, everyone, and glad to be here with us. And we're thankful for yet another opportunity to share with you on today. I'm kind of running in and out. I got to get to the hospital and pick up someone and see someone. and just left out of my 7 o'clock meeting this morning. So it's just one of those days, but I'm glad to be here, and feel free to touch bases with me about anything.
Great. And later on in our agenda, we will have more detailed updates from our commissioners, because we want to hear what you're doing across the state. At this point, I would like to turn it over to Dean Eatman, who is the Director of Legislative Affairs and advisor to the Secretary of the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. And he has some good stuff for us.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, and the rest of the commission. I'm glad to be here with you this morning, and always appreciate the invitation to not only give you an update from the General Assembly, but hear all the good things you have going on. I like to listen to the rest of the meeting to hear even better stuff than what I can tell you. But toward the end of this month, or the beginning of this month, early July, the General Assembly mostly adjourned for the rest of 2022. And that's following a marathon session in 2021. You may remember that the General Assembly was in session last year for 13 or 14 months, which doesn't make a lot of sense to say out loud, but that really is what happened. They convened in January of 2021 and adjourned their long session in the first months of 2022. They then returned in May of 2022 for their short session that adjourned the beginning of July after passing a budget into law that was signed by Governor Cooper. So we're glad to get that done on a more traditional and way better timeline than what we did last year. I know Secretary Wilson mentioned in his comments that the 2021 state budget didn't become law until November or December. So having a budget in July is a really good thing and helpful for all of us, and certainly for Angela and her team. I mentioned that this year's the short session budget, which is an opportunity for the General Assembly really to make amendments and adjustments to the 2-year long session budget that they passed in 2021. So there's less in this budget, and that's always the case because they had already appropriated most of the funding for the fiscal year that began on July 1st of 2022 and will carry us through June 30th of next year. That being said, there are a handful of items in addition to the items that I shared with you from last year's budget at a previous meeting. There are a few new items that were included in the short session budget that I want to highlight for you all. And the biggest and truly the top priority for our department this year was investments in staff, state employees. I think we know that like every other employer in America, we are having issues and problems retaining talent, recruiting talent for vacant positions. And frankly, a lot of our folks, even that are being patient and sticking around with us, don't make nearly enough. So we really prioritized and worked hard with the General Assembly to let them know about the pay issues that we've had and some of those examples of the good work that folks are doing, but also how that compares to relatively low compensation in many positions across state government and across our department. That resulted in a 3.5% raise across most state employees, full-time state employees, as well as some funding to go in and make specific adjustments to state employee salaries that will be spread across the department. That'll be work that happens over the next few months. And beyond that, there are not additional specific, you'll remember that in the 2021 state budget, there was additional funding for the African American Heritage Commission, the first appropriated state funding for the African American Heritage Commission that we were really excited to have seen become law. And while there was not additional funding for the division specifically this year, beyond the salary funding that I just mentioned, I do want to point out a few items from the budget that I think might be of interest to all of you. The first is the first funding from the General Assembly for North Carolina's commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the Revolutionary War and the Declaration of Independence. That's a commemoration that's going to be happening really with a focus from 2025 to 2026, but something that our department is already working to kick off and get started as a statewide commemoration, and not only a statewide commemoration, but a commemoration that is inclusive of all the stories of the people who have been America and all of the stories of those people working to live up to those ideals that I think we sometimes celebrate and hold up as the founding ideals of our nation from the 18th century. So we're really making sure that this is not just a story of things that happened 250 years ago, but all the steps that have brought us to where we are, and a recognition of steps that we still certainly have ahead of us to continue to be all that we can be as Americans and as a country. So I think there's going to be a big role for the commission and all of your networks to ensure that we have a commemoration of America's 250th anniversary that's inclusive and is something that everybody who calls our state home can see themselves represented in some way. There's also a significant additional funding for our Arts Council's Grassroots Arts program, which is a formula-based grant that goes to every county. All 100 counties receive funding from Grassroots Arts. Most of the time that money goes to a local arts council. You could talk to Dr. Brothers a lot more about that. I'm sure she could tell you more than I can. But the thing I'll mention specifically there is that grant program received a 35% increase to the amount of money that's going to be available annually going forward. That's a big increase. It's now about a $3.8 million pot that's spread across the state to support arts work in every single county. And I know that the Arts Council has taken some really positive steps and intentional steps to ensure that the art that's promoted with those funds and all of their grant funds and the artists who are supported with those funds represent all of the people who call all of our counties home. So ensuring that diverse artists and diverse art are supported with these funds and ensuring that we have that good, rich art network and landscape in North Carolina that we know make it, or one of the things that make our state such a great place. And so I'm excited about that funding. And then finally, $1 million non-recurring one-time appropriation was made to the International Civil Rights Center and Museum in Greensboro, which is not part of our department, but is like lots of other institutions across the state, part of our broader network of entities and institutions that are working on similar priorities and work as those that DNCR is focused on. And so we're always excited to see our partners receive funding as well. I know that they've got some big, exciting projects and expansion on the horizon that they were great to see the General Assembly participating and supporting some of those needs and supporting that project with financial contributions. Beyond that, as I mentioned, the list this year is pretty short, so there's not a lot of other budget items to list out for you. We did have an appointments bill. That's a pretty regular bill that passes every year, where the Senate and House make their appointments to boards and commissions where they have appointees. And as has already been referenced, we have some new commissioners thanks to the passage of that bill. So congratulations to both of you. And I think beyond that, I'm happy to answer any questions, Dr. Johnson, if you'd entertain that, or otherwise, thank you all so much for having me.
You're welcome, and I thank you for presenting us with that information. And I encourage commissioners, will you please ask questions of Deans while he is here with us? We couldn't really function well without having ongoing advocacy for our budgetary priorities. So we thank you, Deans, for keeping us connected. Any questions or comments?
I did have a
Just want to take a moment. Go ahead.
Just a clarification, you said that for the Greensboro Museum, that was a one-time allocation?
Yes, it was. That's a capital appropriation. My understanding is it's connected with the acquisition of an adjacent property for expansion of the museum.
Okay. And the other, for the Arts Council, it's that's a yearly appropriation for the Arts Council with the 35% increase for this year.
That is a permanent increase that will then be part of their annual availability to make those grassroots arts grants.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Also, for the record, just when you first start speaking, just to remind you all to state your name, just say this is so-and-so, and then go ahead and speak for our viewing listeners. Any of those are great questions. Thank you, Commissioner Wallace. Are there any other questions?
Leslie Mckesson speaking. I have a quick follow-up to the last question that was asked about the grassroots grants. Are they to be administered through the local arts councils, or what is that relationship? I'm thinking, how do other grassroots organizations plug into that as a grant source?
Brothers, I saw you unmuted. Do you want to answer? You probably could do a way better job than I could.
Sure, no problem. Yes, you're correct. The funds come to us, and then we distribute those to the local arts councils across the state, and they sub-grant to those organizations within their areas.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brothers. She wears several different hats in coming to our commission, and one of them is serving, I'm gonna get this wrong, deputy, or is it assistant director?
Deputy director.
Deputy director for the arts. She's the deputy director for the Arts Council. So any questions you have about arts, again, float them to Dr. Brothers. And before we go much further, I just want to recognize, and then we'll hear more from Angela later about the work of her and her staff, but I also appreciate all the staff who are with us today and who are going to be contributing to what we know about the commission. I'm glad to see you all, and the staff has been extraordinarily busy, and they're going to let you know all about it in a little while. Any other questions before I move into my report, which I will make brief so that we have plenty of time to ask questions of Angela when she gives her report. I first again want to welcome our newest commissioners formally to our commission, and that is the Honorable Pauline Hankins, as well as Elder Fandela Lee. We're happy to have y'all's representation. Still working on getting more folks from the eastern part of the state, the far eastern part of the state, in fact. And we also are glad to have, and I will name officially, Carrie Bird and Quinn West Godwin from the newly established North Carolina American Indian Heritage Commission. See, I'm gonna have to get used to rolling out both names in an equitable way, but we are really excited and enthused about this because it allows us to fully tell our joint stories as well as our different stories that are part of a larger picture of what it is to be North Carolinian. And I think it is past due to have the commission, the American Indian Commission, on board. So we're excited. On that note, I just want to mention a few highlights, some things that I was able to participate in. And as Secretary Wilson mentioned, the Freedom Park work that's being done. Well, one point of that was when Dr. Brothers, Angela Thorpe, and I were able to look at some of the excavation work that was being done. Because of course, when you start doing any kind of digging, you may encounter remains of people who were previously there. Well, that's what happened with Freedom Park. It tells another story of early Raleigh that includes African Americans as enslaved persons. So we were excited to see what they were, the artifacts that were being uncovered, and the hope and the plan, actually I should say the plan is for those artifacts to be on display at some point for our especially for our young people, to be connected to more of the history. Excuse me. So that was an exciting event. Also, since the time we last met, there have been movement on the Green Book Project in concert with South Carolina's African American Heritage Commission. I was able to participate in the second of 3 meetings. We have one more meeting coming up. The second meeting was a workshop in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And the whole idea is how the 2 commissions can work together to put forth more of the information about the Green Book. And Ms. Thorpe, Angela will tell you more details about what our staff has been doing in terms of pushing out the Green Book story and using the funding that we've received from the National Trust for Historic Preservation to do so. And the excitement is being able to do it again in with our sister commission down in South Carolina. So it gives a very full picture of some of the extant Green Book sites, as well as the ones that were lost. As also mentioned by Secretary Wilson, that our commission is working with the State Historic Preservation Office to talk about the Rosenwald, to create the idea or energy around supporting a network for a Rosenwald school. We're not sure how that's going to look, what that is going to entail, how it would be funded, but it's just the idea of thinking about how we can involve more of our Rosenwald schools in being connected with one another so that we're able to better preserve those sites. We don't have the funding as a commission to do that, to give money to these Rosenwald schools, but we do have toolkits and other ways in which we can be supportive. We just need a body of folks who are willing to be engaged. And commissioners, that will be coming down the line, one of the tasks that we're going to ask you to help us with, and that is recognizing the Rosenwald schools that are in your particular area and what kind of support they would need. So there'll be more on that a little bit later. And I can't help but think about when early in my days with the commission with Reverend Crawford, how he was able to actually take us to Rosenwald School in his community. And I want him to mention a little bit about that in his remarks just a little later on. The last couple of things I would like to talk about, I also serve on the Preservation North Carolina PNC organization. I'm on the board there, as well as Dr. Brothers. That's why I say she wears a lot of hats. So our preservation work in terms of African American heritage is also continued through that work on that in that nonprofit. I'll be the incoming chair as of November of the board. And so we're really going to look at how we can work very closely with the commission to make sure that the sites that are around the state that talk about African American heritage and history and culture are better preserved, identified, and then preserved. And to that end, I'm working with the Greensboro group in order to, there's a project looking at the Bimbo community in Greensboro as an African American neighborhood to help create the nomination for it to be a National Register historic site. So there are a lot of things that are going on. Last 2 things. I recently gave a talk at Tryon Palace, and this is part of what we do as commissioners. People often come to the African American Heritage Commission asking for speakers, and we do have a speakers bureau, and Adrienne and Angela can talk more about what that entails. But one of the things that happens is you get to go out and speak on behalf of the commission. And so I was there just this last Thursday, giving a talk about reckoning with Black health, wellness, and equity. and being able to weave in the story of Leonard Medical School as one of the early Black medical schools in this country, and then just lifting up how it translates into the work that's being done today around Black health and wellness. And so think about your areas of expertise and how you would like to get that out into the greater community, so to speak, because you're on this commission because you have gifts and talents, and we would like to share those further than just within our meeting. And on that last note, can I share screen, Adrienne? I want to remind us of our commission engagement.
You absolutely can share your screen. Go ahead.
Cool. So this, all of you have access to this, but I just remind you that we have this commissioner engagement plan, and it was in the table of contents. And it's really important, one, to do the work, and this is a summary, but I really want to get to the aspect of how the commissioners can support the staff in their work. One of the main things is our advocacy, our ability to advocate on our projects to the state legislature, to be able to connect to our various constituents. Think of yourselves as ambassadors from your area, as well as ambassadors from the commission, and that you are a bridge in order to have these conversations about heritage and culture and arts. So these are the things that we expect for you to engage in, with your area. There'll be technical assistance opportunities that you can participate in, helping to support the staff. You might have particular expertise that can lend itself to questions that constituency brings to us. There's also, this is a big one, advocacy. So all of those things that Dean talked about in terms of the legislative budget, those items are important to the continued work. So that investment in staff impacts us as a commission, because we do need more staff to carry out that work. It cannot be done by just 2 to 3 full-time people. It's that, as you can see, our work keeps growing, and as it grows, our staff, full-time staff, also needs to grow. We also are supporting our various other staff positions, whether they are of a limited basis, as in terms of projects like the Green Book project, it was supported for a limited time. And those are valued resources that we have, and we need to value those staff who are engaged in that. We want you to be connected to the programs and initiatives, and you could also, and this is a thing that is in you have a form, you can engage in professional development. There may be a conference that you would like to attend, and some of the commissioners have taken advantage of that, and I thank you of going, because we can't be everywhere all the time. So they've gone to various kinds of conferences. For example, the African American History ASALA conference, we've had representation there. So call on Angela if you have a professional development opportunity you want to partake in, and she will see what assistance the commission can provide you. And then also, which I owe, is an after action report. So now that I've gone to Tryon Palace, I will submit a report that just documents what I did on behalf of the commission, so that we have a record of that. And finally, I just want to recognize that we cover a pretty good portion of the state. I mean, you see the area at the far, far west, and we've got one new commissioner who's in the far, far east. And then we've got this whole middle area. So I appreciate my commissioners who are in our western part of our state, trying to cover that territory as well. So this is kind of where we are in terms of geography. You are welcome to do things together as commissioners. So don't think that you just need to do things alone or by yourself. We're all here to work together. And then the two areas that's key, if you can look and see, and you can always update these boxes, and I really love the way this is laid out. The initiatives, programming, and professional development. If you find, oh, I want to engage in this, let Adrienne and Angela know so that they can include that. And as you can see, we also have constituent engagement. So this tells where people's interests are. For mine, it's historic preservation, women's rights, speaking engagements, media requests. And for Commissioner Rhodes, she is our representative to the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor meetings, and that is really key. We've got fundraising. I thank y'all who are engaged in that. Dr. Mckesson is interested in genealogy. So as you can see, we've got a variety of interests, leadership training with Dr. Crawford. So engage in all of these different activities and let us know what you're doing. And then for advocacy, and this is where I'm going to really emphasize in my remarks. Right now, consistent advocacy has been done by Commissioners Crawford, Brothers, Moore, and Rhodes, and that's really important. We're asking, and I'm asking, that more of you be engaged in advocacy. That is really getting our legislative folks to understand what we do. We need to let them know the importance of their support. And sometimes it's just a matter of telling them the good news. It's not always about asking for something, but saying, look, this is what has happened as a result of the funding that you gave for Freedom Park. We're able to tell more of the story about Raleigh and early North Carolina. Let's be more engaged in working with our state legislative representatives to get them to understand our story and to help fund things like a full-time position for our Freedom Park. That's just an example of something that would be something great to come from the legislature, the funding to do that, or other things that the commission needs. And if you have a question about what do we need, Angela is the person who will give you full information on all of that. And with that, I will stop sharing and ask if there are any questions or comments that you have for me at this time. Ooh, wow, quiet. Well, I know I'm ready for Angela's report, and she will entertain questions again at the end of her report, and then after that, we'll take a break.
Dr. Johnson, may I ask a question?
Sure.
And this is Pauline Hankins. I'm new to the commission. I appreciate everyone. Good morning, everyone. Do you all have a set date that you meet, that the commission meet each year? Is it because I'm actually doing my schedule for 2023. And if there is, I want to go ahead and hold those dates.
Well, it's we usually start working on the dates after the last meeting. One of the considerations we had was during COVID, how we were going to meet. At one point, it was all virtual. And so this next meeting, and we don't have that set exactly, it'll be in the fall sometime. And Angela can talk through that process. We do try to set the meeting as soon as we can. We have decisions to make whether we're going to be a hybrid fully virtual or fully in person. And that will dictate when we'll be able to hold the meeting. But to answer your question, the short answer is we don't have a set meeting date.
Right. And what I can offer Judge Hankins and Dean Johnson is we typically meet January of every year, so you can expect a January 2023 meeting. Additionally, we meet in the summer, so typically that summer meeting falls on either June or July, but that's our schedule now. We will be meeting in person from henceforth. The executive order that enabled us to meet virtually has expired. And so per government regulations, we'll be meeting in person going forward.
Thank you so much. And I'm assuming as soon as you all get that date for January, you will notify the commissioners. And the reason why I asked, I do my own court schedule and I do it 6 months out, and I'm actually working on January calendar and hoping to publish it on Friday. If I knew the date, I could actually save that date for January. And that's why I said the sooner I know, it would help me out so much to not have court schedule, not have to try to cancel court or reschedule cases that get set for January. But thank you so much.
Well, thank you for that. And we will work and see if we can do that, because the work you're doing in the court system is really important. And we wouldn't like for you to have to delay someone's case. So we appreciate that input.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I will move to Ms. Angela Thorpe, who is our director, and hear her report.
Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson. Everyone, good morning. I'm so happy to see you all together again in virtual space nonetheless, but it's really a delight to see so many of us on today's Zoom. So have a lot of ground to cover, so I will go ahead and hop right in. Adrienne, if you'd switch to the next slide. So again, we are so delighted to welcome two new commissioners, Judge Pauline Hankins and Elder Fondella Lee. I wanted to give you a little bit of space if you'd just like to say hello to the group, to let us know who you are and why you're excited about being on the commission. Judge Hankins, I'd love to begin with you.
Okay. Again, good morning, everyone. My name is Pauline Hankins. I am a district court judge down in Brunswick County. I actually serve 3 counties, Brunswick, Columbus, Bladen County. I'm a judge, but currently I serve as the juvenile judge for Brunswick County, handling cases, abuse, neglect, termination, parental rights, and things like that. I'm just so honored to be a part of this commission. I am an advocate for telling our story. I tell my colleagues all the time, I'm in Southeastern North Carolina, where now I am one of only 3 African-American judges in the entire Southeastern North Carolina. So I tell my colleagues all the time that they need to hear our story. I believe that as a race, we have so much, we're such a resilient group of people, and that our story will bring solutions to current issues. I think in order for this state to advance, I think that we have to be part of it. And so I'm just so honored to be able to be a commissioner, to be a representative for this commission down in Southeastern North Carolina. I've always been an advocate for us. And so I'm just so honored to be a part of it.
Thank you so much, Judge Hankins. And looking towards far northeastern North Carolina, Elder Lee, if you would unmute and say hello to the group and let us know how and why you're excited to be serving on the commission.
Good morning, everyone. I am Fondella Lee for Paquemis County. Paquemis means land of beautiful women. Paquemis is an Indian name. And so I am excited to be a part of the commission. I am also a county commissioner in Paquemis County. And so telling our history is so important. Listen about Rosenwald School. We have a Rosenwald School that needs to be restored. In our county, in the town of Hertford, there is a marker for what we call colored soldiers. I think it's one far. I think it's only one. I think probably in the surrounding areas. But so I'm really excited about that. I'm not only a county commissioner, but I am a presiding elder in the AME Zion Church. So I'm excited about this opportunity to share even about our churches, because we have a lot of churches that are 156 years old or older. Also, I'll be working with United Methodist Church, the district elders and the presiding elders in the northeast part, talking about history, doing a walkthrough of telling our history, as a judge said, telling our history. And we want to start doing like a history tour of African American landmarks, so they will know our history. We just had a meeting, I think it was last week, about that, and looking for. Now I shared about I was a part of this commission. I'm not sure how the commission can help us with that. So I'm really excited about that work and just glad to be a part. Listen, from Northeast North Carolina, the state does not stop at Rocky Mount or Greenville. Listen, we exist in a town called Hertford and a county called Paquin. So we exist up here. So I'm excited about this being a part, being from Northeast North Carolina. So I'm looking forward to working with everyone.
Wonderful. And I'm so grateful for both of your energy. I've got to say, you all have been an incredible group of commissioners, particularly over the last couple of years. There's been so much energy. There has been so many contributions to our state. There has been a significant amount of engagement, and I want to thank each and every one of you for that. And I hope that we can keep the good work up. Speaking of good work, one of our foremost workers on the commission is Dr. Leslie Mckesson, and we are so delighted that she has been reappointed to another term as a commissioner. You can see here to the right of our screen out at a Civil Rights Trail marker dedication, but we so look forward to continuing to keep her and the remaining commissioners active this year. So you received some challenge and charge from Dr. Johnson. Adrienne and I look forward to really getting you all out on the ground and helping you as you connect with constituents across the state of North Carolina around Black history, art, and culture, everyone. Next slide, please. So the exciting news continues. We have a couple of guests joining us today. And so I wanted to create a little bit of space for Director Curry Bird and Associate Director Quinn Godwin of the American Indian Heritage Commission to say hello and give remarks. We have been so happy to welcome them. In fact, their offices are just around the corner from ours, so we're able to see them every day and connect. And I've got to say, Associate Director Godwin is not only a colleague, but a friend. And so it's really nice to welcome him to the department as well. So with that, Curry, did you want to unmute and say a couple of remarks followed by Quinn?
Sure. We're glad to be here as the commission, the Heritage Commission. As you know, we have a North Carolina Commission of Indian Affairs, so we're a little different than Indian Affairs Commission, which is more focused on policy and programming. But we're made up of 8 tribes here in North Carolina and 4 urban organizations. They all have commissioners who sit on our Heritage Commission. We're currently working on a website, social media campaign, developing a logo for our Heritage Commission. We're hoping to have a meeting in October where we can bring everyone together, hopefully meeting right here at the State Archives building here in Cultural Resources. And then to get more information from our community, what they really see as our charge. We know we're here to promote history, arts, and culture of American Indians, but we want to know specifically what they feel they need in their tribal communities, and because we're here to be their voice. So we're looking to do a listening tour with our commissioners, going out to the tribal communities and finding out what they feel is important and what they would like us to do. We want to collect stories from our elders who live in those communities, because we have a number of people, especially with COVID, it really impacted our communities. And so we realize now that we need to collect the stories from our elders so we can document those, we can archive those, and really have that to tell our stories to our future generations in our communities. That's very important. We also just participated in a historical markers webinar last week, which is very exciting because, like you in your communities, we feel there's a lack of historical markers marking the significant impact that we've had on North Carolina. And so we want to do more research on our schools, our churches, our cemeteries, much like the African American Heritage Commission has done in the African American community. So we're not really looking to duplicate everything you're currently working on, but we want to give our perspective of the same things, the same incidents, because we know our history hasn't been told either. So we're here to create visibility for our community and really be able to tell their stories. I know one of the things we've talked about is historical markers and marking institutions like Old Main down at UNC Pembroke, which was started as an Indian school in 1887. East Carolina Indian School, if anybody's been through Sampson County on Highway 421, it was a school that served not only the Coharie tribe, but the Saponi tribe and the Waccamaw-Siouan tribe, and other institutions like that in various Indian communities. I know we want to create more visibility of historical items that have been reclaimed or discovered. We had a number of canoes which have been identified in some of the rivers and Lake Waccamaw that have been recovered, and state archaeology has worked to preserve those, and we're going to return those back to the tribal community so they can have them on display in those communities. We're working with Town Creek Indian Mound on some reworking of some of their displays and some of their exhibits. We're very excited about that, as well as Indian Heritage Month. Our month is coming up in November. We want to make sure that we're well represented, and we do a lot to impact our communities with the activities we have planned. And just doing other things like cultural tourism, finding opportunities for us to be out front in the communities and doing other things. So we're just really glad to be here. We're excited. We know we have a lot of work to do. We got a lot of catching up with the African American Heritage Commission. We're really looking to you for your support and your encouragement, and really following in your footsteps for things that we can do, because you've been a big success. I know you have a long way to go and feel like you have a long way to go, but we're on your coattails, and we're coming along as well. I'd like to have Quinn say a few words as well. He's our associate director. He's also from the Lumbee tribal community, which is where I grew up. I'm actually a tribal member of the Sisseton, Wahpeton, Oyate tribe, which was my dad's tribe in South Dakota. So that's where I'm an enrolled member, but I grew up in Robeson County in the Lumbee tribal community, which is my mom's heritage. And just very excited and very knowledgeable about that community. But Quinn is here. His dad was a former chairperson for the Lumbee tribe and did an outstanding job. And Quinn's working currently in the governor's office, but we're waiting for him to be able to come over to Cultural Resources and be a member here on site. So Quinn, I'll let you speak a few minutes, and we're just glad to be here. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Director Byrd. I've known Curry for a long time, several years, and I'm just pleased to have him as the director. And I'm going to do everything I can to support him, and just the knowledge he has, the cultural knowledge, being a tribal elder, that's really important. And I'm glad we have him on board. Angela, thank you so much for the kind words. You are a true friend. I had the pleasure of meeting Angela when I first came to the governor's office about a little over 4 years ago. And actually, one of my former colleagues in Office of Public Engagement in the governor's office, Akira Harris, I'm glad to see her, and that she's joined the African American Heritage Commission. Akira and I had to make that transition to virtual back in 2020 when the pandemic first hit. So we hosted bi-weekly public engagement specials that were live streamed, just putting information out there when COVID first started, before the vaccine. So it's good to see her there. And it's high time for the work that we're about to start doing. I followed the African American Heritage Commission for several years since I've been here in the governor's office. I love all the programming, everything that you do. We've actually had the pleasure of working together on most recently the Martin Luther King State Employees Observance, where I met Dr. Johnson for the first time, and it was a pleasure meeting her. But I am still doing a little bit of both, juggling both the governor's office and DNCR, but I look forward to coming over there in the coming weeks. I'm actually filling in for our current director. Many of you probably know her, Stephanie Pegues. She actually had her son back in June, so she's out on maternity leave. But it's fun to still be in both places, but I'm ready to make that transition eventually. So thank you much, and thank you for creating the space for us to speak here today. And we'll look forward to working in parity with you. So thanks, everybody.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Director Byrd and Associate Director Godwin, for taking the time to say hello and speak to our commissioners today. And we look forward to working closely with you and supporting you as you all grow and connect deeply to your constituency around the state of North Carolina. Continuing in the vein of exciting news, we have an exciting announcement related to the African American Music Trails of Eastern North Carolina. Some of you all might be familiar with this trail system. This trail system was developed in partnership with the North Carolina Arts Council over many, many decades. The trail officially launched in, I would say, the mid-2010s, and since then has been held by the North Carolina Arts Council as its primary steward. I will cue Adrienne to share our exciting update around the African American Music Trail.
Yes, thank you, Angela. I appreciate it. So our exciting news is that we are making a transition to begin taking on the stewardship of the African American Music Trails of Eastern North Carolina, which we are very excited about. Now, this is big work. This is deep work that we are not taking on lightly. So we are taking a lot of time and space this year to start planning for what that might look like, engaging with communities, having conversations, and making sure that we are serving the people of North Carolina and serving what their great hopes for this music trail are. This will also include some digital engagement and things like that. So please do stay tuned. We will have more information coming up soon to share with you all.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. So Adrienne will really serve as the brilliant lead on this transition. She has led the growth of the North Carolina Civil Rights Trail, as well as some of our other trail systems, including Freedom Road's Underground Railroad Trail. So really look forward to this trail growing and being reactivated and reimagined under Adrienne's leadership. And we look forward to continuing to work very closely with the North Carolina Arts Council, especially Dr. Brothers and her team, because this must remain a collaborative effort, because it was developed as a collaborative effort over decades and decades. And so really looking forward to, again, bringing some new life to the trail in partnership with our rich partners, stewards, and stakeholders. So as Adrienne stated, we look forward to keeping you all updated on what will happen, but wanted to make sure that you are aware of this formal announcement. So I'm now going to lean into our strategic plan and some of the goals that we have set for the year. You all are going to hear from me around what are some of our strategic plan goals for fiscal year 2022, 2023, and how are we actually leaning into meeting those goals. And so to go ahead and begin, one of our foremost strategic plan goals is to continue to expand the ways in which we are supporting our constituents across the state, specifically through technical assistance to those groups and individuals who do the work of Black history, art, and culture across the state of North Carolina. And so this fiscal year, we are really leaning into developing a repository or a library of technical assistance resources for those constituents. Adrienne and I take a lot of meetings and do a lot of site visits with constituents across the state of North Carolina, but we want to create a way to provide assistance for these folks that is more sustainable. And so one thing that you have seen from us are professional development webinars for our constituents. We had a very popular professional development webinar series in 2020, and we brought that series back again this year, where we're covering a number of topics, everything from how to preserve historic Black spaces across North Carolina to fundraising 101 for African American heritage institutions. Later this summer, these webinars will be available in resource library format on the Commission's website. We'll also be developing a series of what we're calling technical leaflets to address some of our most commonly asked questions that we receive from constituents. These leaflets will address everything from how do I start a museum to how do I preserve an artifact. And again, they will be available online in downloadable format so that we can provide these resources to constituents in a way that feels more sustainable and effective than taking a series of meetings or doing a series of site visits. Again, we want to provide resources to constituents and have them at their fingertips. I've also asked Adrienne just to share a little bit about our current webinar series. You can see here, we've provided a flyer for the upcoming webinar on August 5th, but we've had, I think, 8 parts in this series, and it's been incredibly popular. So this is a signal to us that our constituents are really, really leaning into this resource that we're providing. So Adrienne, did you want to provide some data on this current series?
Absolutely. So as of yesterday, we have had a total of 407 individuals register for our webinar series, which for us, again, leaning into that signal that there is a great amount of interest for the information that we're sharing. So we're averaging just about 50 people per session. The most popular topics so far of the webinars that have occurred were those relating to cemetery preservation and also to historic site preservation. As well as, making sure that we're serving folks in North Carolina and our North Carolina counties. We've had a lot of representation from Eastern North Carolina all the way to the West. We've also seen a lot of national interest, which was something that we didn't necessarily expect when we were starting this series. So we've seen folks from Georgia, California, Texas, Massachusetts, Arkansas. A lot of folks are interested in the resources that we have to share. So we've really been excited to engage folks in North Carolina as well as across the country.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. So again, this is a signal that what we are creating for Black culture workers is being received across the state. To that end, next slide, Adrienne, we want to continue to find ways to support grassroots Black culture workers strategically and sustainably. And so we intend to continue working this year towards collaborating with partners to develop a statewide African American heritage tourism study and implementation plan. We understand that there is an abundance of African American cultural resources across the state of North Carolina. So how do we lean into identifying what those resources are, identifying what their needs are, and collaborating to really identify a way to make sure that folks both inside of and outside of the state are turning to North Carolina as a destination for African American heritage tourism. We see this as a means towards economic development, but also workforce development for our state. And again, we are moving forward on this goal. I've made a formal pitch about our visions for an African American heritage tourism study to the Governor's Office of Strategic Partnerships, and they have officially signed on as a partner for us. Additionally, the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources has signed on, and we're in conversation with the Department of Commerce and Visit North Carolina about securing them as official partners for this effort. Ultimately, we would like to secure $100,000 in seed funding for this effort. Once we secure that seed funding, we'll then be in position to move forward with the Office of Strategic Partnerships around actually executing this tourism study. They will serve as the primary project manager, which is absolutely incredible. They will also work to serve as the lead institution that will source researchers and the whole study team to execute this study. So again, we've got a foundational team in place that is eager to execute this study. We're just seeking some seed funding to get this off of the ground. And hopefully that can happen within a year from now. So the end of this fiscal year. Next slide. So continuing around this vein of grassroots culture workers across our state, there has really been a call to create more space for these groups to convene so that ideas can be exchanged, so that connections can be made, and so that really a coalition of these grassroots groups can form around various topics. Convening grassroots groups is something that we identified as a need in our strategic plan several years ago. And so this is something that we want to begin planning for. I don't anticipate that we will host any convenings until 2024 and 2025, but it's important that we begin the process of planning now. You heard Dean Johnson speak to Rosenwald schools. Secretary Wilson is very passionate about Rosenwald schools and those grassroots workers who are working earnestly to sustain them across the state. And so that has been identified as a priority group to convene in 2024. Additionally, we have identified local African American Heritage Commissions as a priority group to convene. There are about 7 to 8 local African American Heritage Commissions across our state, including some I'm hearing whisperings of that are in development. These groups are tied to local government, but also exist as independent nonprofits. And so we want to create space for them to convene, to again, exchange ideas, but also gain some professional development support. And so again, we will begin the process of planning for those convenings this year with the hopes of executing them in 2023 and 2024. Next slide, please. Wonderful. So we continue to lean into sharing news and professional development opportunities with stakeholders across North Carolina, particularly through resources that Adrienne leads, like our very popular digital newsletter, as well as social media, so Facebook and Instagram. We want to continue doing that work, but we realize that we have a gap specifically around sharing relevant resources for artists in our state. And so this is an area where we intend to grow this year. We need to do more work around supporting our artist community and amplifying the contributions of Black artists in and from North Carolina. And so that is something that you can expect to see this year moving forward, particularly through, again, newsletters, social media. And we look forward to working very closely with the Arts Council around this effort. Dr. Brothers, you can expect me to reach out to you here soon just to explore the ways that we can connect better and more deeply with our Black artist community. Because again, we realize it's a gap and we want to do better. Next slide, please. Okay. Speaking of Dr. Brothers, Dr. Johnson, Commissioner Rhodes, I know that this is an area that you all are incredibly passionate about. So education and really deepening our connections with educational institutions across the state of North Carolina. So as identified in our strategic plan, we envision establishing and nurturing relationships with university and college programs specifically with departments that align with the work of the commission. We've done the work of identifying what those programs and departments are, but again, we want to connect more deeply to them. We need to do more work around identifying how we can support them, and also in turn, how their students might be able to support us. And so this year you can expect us to execute some outreach to those departments. We also look to continue to offer internship and professional development opportunities to students across the state of North Carolina. This is something we have a really good track record for with students from North Carolina Central University, North Carolina State, and UNC Greensboro. But again, we want to expand the professional development opportunities that we are creating for students. And then finally, we want to create an HBCU outreach strategy. We need to be thoughtful about the ways that the commission can support the work of historically Black colleges and universities across the state of North Carolina. And so we want to craft a strategy to do that work. And we look towards collaborating with Dean Johnson and Dr. Brothers specifically around what that strategy might look like. I will note, you might be asking who's going to do this work. We have someone designated. We're so grateful that here soon we will be able to bring an education and interpretation specialist on board. I'm hoping to do those interviews, hopefully towards the end of the summer or the beginning of the fall. And so this work is something that will be delegated to that specialist. On our next slide, you will see some more work that we will be delegating to that specialist. There is a great need for the commission to connect more deeply to K through 12 public schools. And so that is another priority that we are setting this year. You can see as an initial action step, we need to hire that education and interpretation specialist. We'll work with that specialist to continue to develop educational resources centered on Black history, art, and culture in North Carolina. And that specialist will have a large charge around developing educator-focused professional development experiences centered on the resources and the initiatives that we have in the commission. So that might look like educator workshops and educator trainings across the state of North Carolina. But again, look forward to deepening our relationships with K-12 public schools. Once that education and interpretation specialist is on board, we look forward to working closely with Commissioner Rhodes and others who might have ideas around how to build those connections. Next slide. So our final priority related to our strategic plan this year is that we will be expanding our portfolio of public engagement resources. You have heard many times over the last year, but the construction of North Carolina Freedom Park is impending. This will be the first physical resource to be stewarded by the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission, and it's something that we will have to prepare for. So Dean Johnson and myself are working very closely with Deputy Secretary Burns around identifying staffing resources for that park. The Friends group that is being developed for the park has been charged to start thinking about fundraising for programming for the park. Of course, the vision is that that park will be a place for gathering, for school tours, for performances, for programs, but all of those things will require fiscal resources and they will require human resources to execute the vision fully. And so again, behind the scenes, we are working to identify how we can capture specifically the human resources needed to make that park a sustainable and effective and connected resource for North Carolinians. We continue to build opportunities, awareness, and resources around our internal trail systems and preparation for the year of the trail. which is occurring in 2023. Again, the African American Heritage Commission currently has a couple of trail systems under its belt: the North Carolina Civil Rights Trail, Freedom Roads, Underground Railroad, and Freedom Seeking Trail, now the African American Music Trails, and we're in collaboration with South Carolina around exploring possibilities for a trail system for Green Book sites that are still standing. And so you are going to see us turn our attention towards strengthening those trail systems, particularly again in preparation for 2023. I'll hop to the last point on this slide. As you've heard me just mention Green Book sites, there is still great energy around thinking about the ways we can commemorate and preserve and advocate for sites that were listed in the Negro Motorist Green Book. We are very fortunate to have received funding from the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund, which is a program of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, to join hands with South Carolina in exploring this question. I'll also note that Virginia has called dibs on this work, so it looks like we're joining hands with Virginia as well to explore how can we create multi-state opportunities to support constituents in preserving Green Book sites. And so we're very, very deep into that work, and we look forward at the end of the year to be able to provide some toolkits, resources, and guidelines for constituents who are on the ground working to preserve Green Book sites. We also hope to have a plan for physically commemorating Green Book sites across these states. There are a lot of folks who are interested in marker programs and driving tours and trails. And so again, we're just trying to work together to figure out what makes sense in terms of physically commemorating these Green Book sites across state lines. Finally, we are so excited to be moving towards the final goal of our Africa to Carolina initiative, which you heard Secretary Wilson raise earlier in the meeting. For those of you who are new to the commission, Africa to Carolina is an initiative that we were charged by the National Museum of African American History and Culture to start in 2018, an initiative that, again, we've had the pleasure of leading since then. Africa to Carolina exists to identify, acknowledge, and physically mark the places in the state where enslaved people disembarked directly from the African continent. And a little bit later today, you are going to hear from Amber Pelham, our brilliant research fellow, to share how some of that work has taken shape over the last couple of years. But the final goal of this work was to physically mark these spaces, and constituents in our very, very early listening tour advocated for these spaces to be marked with public art. And so we think that we are close. We are delighted to be a semi-finalist in the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation's Inclusive Public Art Project. We are one of a handful of semi-finalists that will be up for funding for meaningful public art projects across the state. And so this semi-finalist status means that we have $5,000 to really flesh out our ideas and continue working with communities around how they envision this public art process taking shape. We will then submit a full application to the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation in late January to be considered for full funding. And those projects that are funded will receive between $50,000 to $200,000 to actually execute and install public art across the state. And those finalists will be notified in June of next year. And so we do have a ways to go, but are very grateful that we're a semi-finalist and are positioning ourselves to prepare a strong application for the foundation at the end of January, and look forward to looping in commissioners to some of this planning work as we move forward. Last slide, Adrienne. So again, a lot of ground to cover, a lot of work for the commission. Grateful that we are growing our staff as we are able to execute some of this work. And I'll note that this is work that I lead and continue to expand joyously, you know, to the point of Northeastern North Carolina. I have the pleasure of spending a day in Winton, North Carolina about 2 weeks ago. That is where the Black Elks Lodge is headquartered, and was able to do a site visit to help them explore the possibilities for some of their archival materials and some of their physical materials, artifacts. And so those hands that you see pointing on this slide are Earl Iams, our African-American curator from the North Carolina Museum of History. He and I were assessing the condition of these record books that you see. Some date back as far to 1920, you all. And we look forward to working with this group to conserve some of these materials and get some of these materials in our state archives and our North Carolina Museum of History. I give this example because in addition to what you've heard me rattle off around our strategic plan, this is the work. Our constituents trust the commission, and it is so critical that Black people are at the forefront of telling Black stories across this state. And so again, this is work that we do joyously. I hope that you understand how the goals that we have set for this fiscal year and the actions we intend to take demonstrate our internal organizational growth and the significant development of our infrastructure over the last couple of years. These goals also put us in deeper partnership and deeper relationship with colleagues across the department. You heard me mention several interdepartmental partners. And finally, these goals help us to grow our connections to and support of our wide body of stakeholders across North Carolina, like these gentlemen in Winton, North Carolina, who steward the Black Elks Lodge. I'll note that this work is impossible without the vision and leadership of Adrienne Miranda, the support and energy of you all as commissioners, and without the innovation and brilliance of our team of temporary staff, fellows, interns, and contractors who you will have the pleasure of hearing from in just a moment. We will have time for question and answer either after I close or a little bit later on the agenda. But again, it's my honor to share with you where we are going this year. It's my honor to share how this work is growing, and it's my honor to create space for you all and for our staff to share how you continue to grow the work of Black history, art, and culture across the state. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening all. Thank you, Adrienne.
Thank you so much, Angela. Are there any questions before we go on break? We're a little off schedule, but don't worry about it. We will turn out all right and be gone by 12 noon. So I would not be too worried about this. But are there questions or comments for Ms. Thorpe? If not, I would like to take point of privilege, and instead of having 15 minutes for the break, have 10. Is that okay with y'all to just do a quick 10-minute stretch your legs break? Okay, so we should come back at 10:40.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to call us back to order. It is 10:40. Hope you enjoyed your quick break. And at this point in time, we would like to hear from the commissioners. And I will follow my roll call sheet and call your name and ask you to just give some brief remarks about any updates you would like to share with us at this time. So I will start with the vice chair of our commission, Dr. Brothers.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Good morning again, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, and it's so wonderful to see everyone. Just a couple of items in regards to historic preservation. I've been working with a local, predominantly African-American community in Fayetteville, my hometown, in Cumberland County, specifically the Broadale community, which is across the street from Fayetteville State University. And that is an area where a lot of prominent African-Americans in the community were housed and reside. It was built specifically for them. There were educators that taught at Fayetteville State, that were administrators at Fayetteville State, prominent physicians, lawyers, and educators within the community have resided in that community. So I've been working with a local contact and the department in regards to applying for a local certified local government grant with the city of Fayetteville so they can apply for funding support to do an official study for this historic neighborhood. I did an unofficial study when I was enrolled in my historic preservation course certificate program at UNCG. So we were able to use that foundational information to input into that application. So working with the neighborhood community board several times and meeting with them and explaining to them what the process is in collaboration with the department, specifically with the State Historic Preservation Office, and having staff members from that area come in and speak to the community members in regards to specifics in relation to that. I did kind of have to go back and put it in layman's terms, if you will, for them. So getting our colleagues in that area to understand that we do have to communicate in a way that everyone understands when we're talking about this type of work, and especially if members in the community are familiar with specific terms that are used within that field. So working with the Broadale community in possibly getting that named as a historic neighborhood, because it is happening now. Gentrification is happening across the country really, but it's happening quickly in Fayetteville, North Carolina, specifically around Fayetteville State University. I had an opportunity to participate with the Preservation North Carolina Board as a part of the award nomination committee. So those nominations for those recipients will be announced later, hopefully this summer and soon. So being able to not just have a seat at the table, but to have a voice at the table, and acknowledging the work that African Americans are doing across the state as it relates to historic preservation. So making sure that those individuals in various communities are being acknowledged and awarded for those efforts.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Dr. Brothers before I move to our next commissioner, Reverend Dr. Crawford?
And I'll note too, I've met with Director Thorpe in regards to this work. So we're looking to partner in doing this across the state within African American communities. So more information to come.
Excellent. Reverend Crawford.
Good morning once again, everyone. Multitasking this morning, but thankful to be on this meeting. Just want to take a moment once again to welcome all of the new commissioners and all of the reappointments and everything that has gone forth thus far. Can everyone hear me all right, or just wanted to make sure?
Yes,
Okay.
we can.
All
Yes,
right,
we
good to
can.
go. All right, so I'll be brief, of course. Just want to give you an update. We're dealing with the Baltimore Cramerton area in North Carolina, in the city of Cramerton, North Carolina, the last one-room schoolhouse. The update is that we have officially been named the Baltimore Village School Incorporated. We've incorporated with a 501c3 in order to do the work that needs to be done in the one-room schoolhouse. It was built by Mr. Kramer, which the town of Cramerton is named after, in order to support his, at that time, of course, called Negroes in that community. So it is the last one, and construction is going all around it. So I am glad that we have this going. We also have a preservation easement with the town of Cramerton, and trying to work throughout the state in order to make sure that the needs are there for the preservation of the school. We also had a company, a heating and air company, to come in, and they're going to put heating and air in free of charge. So we're thankful for that donation as well. And I also always encourage everyone to let me know anytime we need to advocate for any work that needs to be done or any money that needs to come. I love to talk with our senators and our House of Representative folk. We have good rapport as far as communicating back and forth, so I like to take care of that as much as possible. Also, definitely would like to attend the conferences as they become available. I'm looking forward to the work that's going to be done in August. So hopefully I'll try to be a part of that with all else that is going on. And we're still working, trying to deal with the Confederate flag, or should I say the Confederate Monument that is standing in front of our courthouse here in Gaston County. And it's back and forth in court, it's back and forth all over the place, but we definitely want to get some type of resolution to that as well. And so that's pretty much what we've been doing. Also, last thing, just recently I was appointed to the North Carolina Human Relations Commissioner by our Governor, Roy Cooper, in conjunction with our Mayor, Walker Reed. And so we're serving in that capacity, as well as continuing our work on the Citizens Advisory Board. And we received a few million to go ahead and continue our efforts, and particularly in housing, that we can go ahead and try to buy land, build houses, and take care of the housing needs here in our Gaston County area. So we're thankful for that. And lastly, do want to say wonderful work that everyone has been doing. I am so thankful to be a part of this commission, and anything I can do, feel free to just let me know. Thank you so much.
And thank you. Any questions for Reverend Crawford? Congratulations, by the way, on the Human Relations Board appointment. That is excellent.
Thank you so much.
The Judge Hankins is next.
I don't really have anything to report. I'm new to the commission, but I hope to have a report in January. I'm really inspired to hear all the other reports. So I look forward to having something soon.
And no doubt you will. We have every confidence in what you have to offer. So we're excited.
And I am very involved in my community down here in Brunswick County. I started a Juneteenth banquet back in 2014. We've had it every year. We didn't do it the last 2 years because of COVID. So I'm involved in a lot of efforts to sort of educate my colleagues, especially about our history So again, I like these ideas that I'm hearing. So I'll be ready to share in January.
Great. Elder Lee, do you have additional words for us?
I do want to share, as a commissioner, we do have we were dealing with public and giving comments on some issues. We have a Confederate monument on the courthouse lawn. So that was, we really don't have a lot of people attending meetings, but when they talk about removing that monument, my words are relocate the monument, a lot of issues. And so we had a subcommittee, and we're now trying to put markers around, instead of relocating the monument, put markers around and telling the history, really why it's there, how it got to be there. That's gonna be interesting to see, but I'm not the judge, and I have a lot to share, but I'm looking forward going forth to have some information to share. I'm just really excited about the commission and feedback, what I'm receiving today, and how we can work together to make things happen. As we used to say in 4-H, make the best better.
Absolutely, thank you. And we look forward to your further contributions and hearing about everything in January. Dr. Mckesson.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our new commissioners, Commissioner Lee and Commissioner Hankins. I look forward to meeting you both. It is such a pleasure and an honor to be signed up for another gig with this great group. I have thoroughly enjoyed my time with the commission so far. I kind of consider myself a COVID commissioner because I came in right at the start of the pandemic and started to get to do some really good things, and then things shut down, but have been able to remain engaged in an electronic way with the fabulous work that Angela and Adrienne and all the rest of the folks here are doing. So one of the things that I think was most memorable to me within the last year was working with the city of Morganton, where I live. Like you, Commissioner Lee, I'm on the western end of those outliers. So we're out here too, but a lot of folks don't realize we're here. But in Morganton, gentrification is happening, as Dr. Brothers mentioned, in our area. And the African American Heritage Commission was able to work with the city of Morganton to commemorate with a historical marker the historic Jonesboro district, which was the first African-American settlement per se in Burke County, and was home to many of the area's leading and foremost African-American citizens of the late 1800s, of the post-Reconstruction and early Jim Crow era. So we dedicated that marker at the end of June, just after Juneteenth. It was an amazing, wonderful time. Brought congratulations on behalf of the commission, and everyone was just very pleased to see this. With gentrification happening kind of like a steamroller all over the country, I think it's very important for us to take these steps to mark our history and to commemorate the things that have come in the past so that they're not totally forgotten. I'm sure a number of you took part in Juneteenth events. One of the things that I was able to collaborate with the local NAACP to present a lecture on critical race theory as part of the Juneteenth observation this year. I have had the wonderful privilege of seeing the great work that's done through the African American Heritage Commission toward K-12 education, as Angela mentioned in her report, most recently working on a curriculum around Black education in North Carolina. It is an amazing curriculum. And when it's published, I would encourage all of you to take a look at that. It goes into depth and detail about the Rosenwald schools, about the Black boarding schools, about so many types of education within the African-American sphere that we may not have known about, and of course, HBCUs. So check that out when it becomes available. And the last thing I'll mention is the Civil Rights Trail, Advisory Commission. that I'm representing the commission on. This is a wonderful initiative. And I think Secretary Reed may have said that we dedicated 5. I think we may have approved maybe 6 by now, but we have the capacity to approve 50 of these markers throughout the state. So I would encourage you, I went with Commissioner Wallace, Commissioner Tansey, back in March or so when the one was dedicated in Shelby. So I would encourage you to spread the word about this wonderful opportunity to recognize these spots. We have another round, which I believe is our final round, if I'm not mistaken, of applications are due at the end of August. So there's still time to pull together a well-constructed, well-supported application and get it into the committee. August 19th, thank you, Adrienne, is our next deadline. So I would encourage you to spread the word about that so we can get some of those sites, okay? And this will be our second to last round. Okay, good. So we have more opportunities to come. Thank you. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Commissioner Mckesson? I will move now to Commissioner Juanita Moore. And you need to come off mute, Commissioner Moore. Great.
Sorry, good morning. I too want to actually commend the staff for the amazing work that they're doing. Every time I'm hearing these reports, I am more in awe of the amount of work that they get done, such a small group, and all the amazing things that they're doing and the kind of partnerships that they create across the state. I will be attending the National Black Theater Festival. I will be there all next week. And from through Saturday, from Monday through Saturday. I will also be attending the African American Museums Association meeting the very next week in Miami. And I participated in the Juneteenth program here in Wilson and continue to meet with the Freeman, the Freeman Roundhouse here in Wilson.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comment for Commissioner Moore? That roundhouse is truly interesting. I can't wait till I am able to get down to Wilson to see it in person.
Yes, they need a lot of support. And I was really excited to hear that the Arts Council has gained more funding for the local Arts Council to fund programs with artists here, because I think that one of the things that could happen with the Freeman House is more of an expansion of including artists in some of the work that they do. Would really broaden their audience a lot.
Thank you. Next, I'll move to Commissioner Rhodes.
Good morning again. First of all, let me thank Dr. Johnson and Dr. Thorpe for all of the work that you continues to do for us in North Carolina. I have been following Dr. Thorpe around from one event to another, and thank you for including me. And I'll go into some of it in just a moment. I also want to welcome 2 of our commissioners, one that will be able to work collaboratively with me, I hope, in Southeastern North Carolina, is Honorable Pauline Hankins. She's in Brunswick, I'm in Wilmington, right where all of the actions, all of the action started for the slave embarkation. So we're ready to tackle that. I have been involved extensively with Paula Stacks in reference to the Rosenwald schools. I am involved with 3 of the Rosenwald schools in this area, in Kentuck, in Bladen County, as well as one in Lake Waccamaw area. Last week, I was able to join Cheryl Beasley, Senator to be Cheryl Beasley, in a parade with the tribal Indian community in Robeson County. That was really remarkable. And so I do have some questions about our tribal leader, the new position that just came on in reference to the 8 Indian sites. As for Wilmington, Wilmington has an extensive arts council, and I work collaboratively with Rhonda Bellamy. Rhonda and I and one more person are responsible for delegating scholarships and awards to many recipients in the Wilmington area. Tomorrow, we're meeting at the Wilson Center, delegating scholarships for disadvantaged youths, disadvantaged senior citizens that have never been to theaters before, disadvantaged students from autism to handicap that have never entered the doors of a theater. So that will happen tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. I was able to attend with Dr. Thorpe the Topsail Beach Marker celebration dedication. That was very impressive, a long time coming. A lot of my family members that were owners of early property in Topsail Beach area when I was just a small child. Lots of memories there. I had some more notes that I wanted to say, and I'm all mixed up. I've written so much on this piece of paper. I was recently appointed to the Board of Trustees by the governor. And in that position, I am able to collaborate with many educators on initiatives of presentations and workshops and staff developments that we have started. And with the new position coming on, I was delighted to hear that. So that will increase opportunities for us to be involved more and more through the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission. I am still working on fundraising with the North Carolina Freedom Park. I was involved with that from the very beginning of the very initial conversations about 10, 12 years ago. So those contacts and the fundraising continues with that. And George Beatty, a friend of mine from Brunswick County, and I'm sure you know him, Honorable Hankins. He is the one person that reaches out to me yearly in reference to the Rice Festival. And we started meeting already about the Rice Festival for next year. So there are lots of connections, lots of people, lots of opportunities for collaboration with you, my colleagues. And I'm just thinking right now, there must be other items that I'm missing. One of the other awards that I received recently was from the North Carolina Project Lead. And that was made up of educators and representatives from Wilmington, Brunswick, and Pender County areas. And I was given the honor of, or selected for their Project Lead Educator of the Year award for outreach in Southeastern North Carolina. And that I'm proud of, and I will continue to toot your horn for making me aware of so many opportunities for us. And now it's time for staff development. It's time for growth for our community and knowledge. with regentrification going on in Wilmington, it's time for us to save some of the buildings. Angela came down to meet with the AKAs and looking at the historical house that's close to downtown Wilmington that many sorority members don't know what to do with because of the funds needed to renovate and keep up and da. But Dr. Thorpe came down, and I forgot the gentleman that she brought with her. And I thank you for doing that. So I can keep going all day about the things that Dr. Thorpe has done for Southeastern North Carolina. But now with my partner, Honorable Hankins, we can really make inroads. And I'm looking forward to meeting you in person and continuing the outreach in Southeastern North Carolina.
Thank you so much. And if y'all are keeping track in the chat, additional information is there. And thank you for giving us the name of that gentleman, Jeff Adolphson, who accompanied you.
Oh, yes, he did.
Correct.
Thank you. He was great.
So we are excited and thank you so much for that update, Commissioner Rhodes. I will turn now, and if you have a question for her, she can please ask now.
Commissioner Rhodes, I'm so glad to meet you virtually. Certainly looking forward to meeting you in person. Would love to exchange cell numbers with you. I don't know if we can just put it in the chat or you just give me your cell note, or I can give you my cell.
You know, I've never met you in person, but I worked on your campaign. I am actively involved in the party in New Hanover, and I know folks that asked me to help them in Brunswick. So I am looking forward to helping, to continue to help you and to get to know you. And of course, I will share myself.
If you want to put it in the chat or you just want to give it to me, I would love to speak with you as soon as we can.
I will put it in the chat. I don't mind at all.
Thank you so much.
And that's exactly the kind of networking we want to have happen to keep the work going forward. And speaking of networking, about George Beatty, or Beatty.
Yes.
Beatty?
Beatty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He was interviewed by one of my students, one of the students up here at Shaw University as part of her environmental justice fellowship and course that she presented that interview with him up in New Jersey at a convening we had with the Humanities Action Lab. That just tells you one piece of the breadth in which all of these different connections can go. So thank you.
Yes.
So Rights Festival it is next year.
You're right.
And I would like to turn now to Commissioner Wallace.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
All right, good afternoon, still good morning. Good morning.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, I have to get near my speaker. Well, good morning to everyone. I want to send you greetings from the beautiful Western North Carolina foothills of Shelby. And first of all, I want to say what an honor it is to be in everyone's presence and to just hear the beautiful things that are happening in our state. You know, you don't have to leave North Carolina to enjoy our history, and you all are making it come alive. And I'm so happy to be a part of the whole picture. I had the honor, and thank you, Dr. Johnson, for your leadership. It's an honor to meet you and to meet everyone and welcome all new commissioners. I'm sort of semi-new. This is my second meeting. I just joined back in October, and I'm just getting, today has just been a well of information for me, and it's been very inspiring. And Angela's doing such a great job. I had the opportunity, as Commissioner Mckesson mentioned, of being a part of the trail marker here in Shelby, North Carolina. What an honor to represent my county here in my city where I live. I remember those people. I knew them growing up who sat at that counter. It was so surreal. And Commissioner Mckesson is a neighbor. She came down from Morganton, and it was just such a prideful moment because my family has a lot of history here. My grandfather was a civil rights activist. My uncle integrated Shelby High School. My mother attended a Rosenwald school, which I'm interested in. It's a Cleveland school, all Black school here in Cleveland County. It's a lot of history here. And I'm just excited to be a part of the commission to bring about more knowledge, more information about all the contributions to our history here in North Carolina. And also I'm looking forward to meeting you all physically at our next meeting. I am very interested in the arts. My father is a Black artisan of North Carolina. He has a permanent display at the North Carolina Museum of History, and it rotates. His name is Franklin Barrow. You all can check out his video called The Secrets in the Wood. And he has tremendous work that I'm trying to expose continually here in North Carolina. We did have a recent exhibit at here at the Cultural Arts Center of all my father's work, and it was a beautiful occasion. So just looking forward to continuing to work with you all and to learn more about you. I tell you, I look at North Carolina and I just see so many beautiful things. And so with that, I look forward to communicating with Commissioner Mckesson, because I like to get involved with the trail, the markers, and with Commissioner Brothers to talk more about the arts. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to serve.
Thank you so much. And we'll still consider you kind of a newbie since this is your second meeting. So we are so glad as well to have you on board and for your quickly jumping into activities with us. I mean, that's the example that we love to have from our commissioners. And you're in the chat is a reference, The Secret is in the Wood. I also, before we close out this section, I couldn't leave it without doing a little own bragging. One of the tangible results of working with the commission, and also a way in which the commission helps stretch us when we participate in these professional development activities, is that I had the pleasure of serving on a panel 2 years ago now for the Society of Historical Archaeology, which put me in connection with, we were working through our Lock and Cord Queen Anne's Revenge work, all of that work that was done by the commission to elevate the story of Lock and Cord so that we understand that ship, the QAR, as a slaver more than it was a pirate ship. Well, we came out with this edited volume excavating the history of slave trade and pirate ships that I got to co-edit with Lynn Harris, who's at HBCU. And in it, one of our fellows has an article in this edited volume. But this is some of the tangible results of participating in this and doing this kind of work. So this just came out in May. Actually, the 1st of June, I'm sorry. It just came out last month. And it is about plunder, property, and loss. And these are the kinds of work products that come out of commission work. So I just had to give that little shout out and hope to continue with my connection with the Maritime History. There's a Maritime History Council that I'm now on the board. And I say this because Danny Bell, who is a prominent American Indian in the state of North Carolina, he was chair of the Indian Studies program at UNC. He's my counterpart on the Maritime Commission because this Maritime Council has talked about that history that coincides with African American history, that Native American history. He's Lumbee and Coharie, and he knows water. Well, he knows a lot, but he can tell you about the water, and he can tell you about those canoes, which is fantastic. And that does coincide with areas of our state where we're now beginning to understand the imprint of Native and Black communities. That's what the market program you're going to hear about in a minute is all about. So I just had to look that up and bring Danny Bell into the mix. So thank you very much. And this is time for Adrienne Miranda, who is the associate director for the African American Heritage Commission and is doing a fabulous job. She is going to give us her report now.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Dr. Johnson. Yes, for those of you I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Adrienne Miranda, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Associate Director for the African American Heritage Commission. In terms of my report today, I am cognizant that we're running a little bit short on time, so I will still do my best to be thorough. I'll be taking some time to talk through digital engagement, as well as some of our strategic plan and the annual goals, a little bit about the Green Book Project, as well as a little bit about Black History Month and Juneteenth. So in terms of digital engagement, that has really been a primary focus of my role since I joined the commission in May of 2020. The goals that we kind of set on from the outset was to continue our growth of communications platforms, as well as increase accessibility and awareness of new and existing resources. We as the commission have been putting out really great resources that the public has really appreciated for, since our creation. However, if folks don't know about them, if folks don't have access to them, then they have less value. So I have been really excited to see the continued growth of our various platforms, and I'll take just a little bit of time to go through some of the numbers. Now, I have a lot of numbers and things on the screen in the next couple of slides. So if you want to take a look at this information in more detail, I did include it as part of my Associate Director report that you have the link for available in your email. So I did a little bit of a comparison here of this past fiscal year, as well as 2020 to 2021. We're seeing a continued growth in terms of traffic to our website. I talked about this in January. As of January, we were amongst Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. Our website was among the top 3 for growth, just behind our colleagues in the Clean Water Management Trust Fund, as well as at the North Carolina Transportation Museum. So that was really exciting to see in comparison to our colleagues that we are seeing a good amount of growth. So we're seeing increased page views, increased users. Something that I think is really interesting about our audience, we're always hearing in the communication world about, oh, we have to make everything mobile friendly. We have to make it all accessible. However, a great percentage of our users are still currently using desktop. So I think that might speak to the type of content that we're doing. It's not just, a quick search on the cell phone. It's something that people are really engaging in and spending a little bit more time on. In terms of the specific pages that folks have been most interested in viewing on our site, the homepage, as well as Green Book Project, can remain very interesting resources for folks. We've seen North Carolina Civil Rights Trail increase in folks' interest. Something this year that I thought was really interesting was that folks were spending more time on our About Us and staff page. And I think that is reflective of all of the job postings that we have had in the last several months. Folks are wanting to know who we are and what work we're doing. So I think that it's really significant and important that we have that information out there. Now, this information also reflects, we did have some updates on our website this year. So I do want to call out that we had our Black History Month, as well as Juneteenth landing pages, places where we intentionally gathered all of our resources together so that folks could access it easily. We also worked towards retooling our North Carolina Civil Rights Trail page as we have more marker dedication ceremonies and things like that, making sure that we're updating photos and including more information about that. We are really excited this year to have a return contract web developer, Phil Bicking, who previously helped us on the Green Book Project, and is currently helping us on the Africa to Carolina web portal, will also be joining our team to assist in some refresh of pages, specifically our resource page. We want to make sure that it is organized and updated appropriately, and using all of the high-tech tools and things that we have available on our website. So please do stay tuned. We are continuously making updates and making sure that it's reflective of the work that we are doing across our website. In terms of social media, yes, this is a lot of numbers on this page, but I did want to just call them out. Again, they are available in my report. We are seeing across the board a continual increase of folks who are following and folks who are being reached by our pages. Particularly, I want to call out our Instagram account. This is an account that is still fairly new for us. We had it for a year as of this past June. So the fact that we have over 700 people following us, just about 700 people following us on that page in a year's time, and we're continually seeing an increase, is really a great sign for us. And I've been excited to see that continued growth. As well, I do want to call out a real big number that I was excited to see in June on our YouTube page was the number of video impressions that we received. So almost 50,000. And I think that this is reflective of the resources that we put out specifically for Juneteenth, and calling people back to our YouTube, calling people back to resources that we had previously created. So it's really a great sign for us to see that it's reaching people, that people are learning from us, that people are engaging with us. So really, really excited to see that continued growth. I do want to call out that I think one of the reasons why we're seeing great growth is because we've been able to be more consistent on our social media in particular. We were able to bring on a social media coordinator, Angelina Castro, to help move this work forward. So she is doing things like executing our social media strategy, creating an editorial calendar, sharing things as our constituents and folks across the state are sharing information. She's the one who's uploading it and making sure that we're getting it done in a timely manner. Previously, she actually worked with us some, so her name is familiar to you. It's because we were able to collaborate with her several years ago on the North Carolina Green Book Project. She did some of our very early social media campaigns for that. And she also previously was a department HBCU MIHE intern. She is a graduate of North Carolina A&T State University. So we're excited to have her on board. And we were recently notified that we will be able to have her on board for at least another year. So we are always appreciative of the work of our contractors and what they're able to do to contribute to our team. Now, shifting away from communications and digital engagement, I do want to touch a little bit on our strategic plan and annual goals. This is a space that Angela talked about previously, specifically as we lean in towards our the convenings that we are planning for 2024. Convenings are a space that I do have experience in. I have planned several statewide conferences within North Carolina, so I'm excited to be working with the commission to be leaning into this space and beginning the planning work for what these convenings will look like. As Angela touched on, we will be focusing on local and regional African American Heritage Commissions. There are about 7 or 8 across our state currently doing this work that, you know, they need resources, they might need support, and we want to make sure that we are serving them to the best of our abilities. As well as another group that we discussed was those who steward historic Rosenwald school buildings, making sure that they have the resources they need to continue to do their great work. Last but not least, a third convening that we are taking on for 2024 is part of our ongoing Institute and I'm talking too fast for myself. I apologize. It's part of our work with the Institute of Museum and Library Services grant for our A Tale of Two Ships grant. This is La Concorde, Queen Anne's Revenge. Part of this grant is that we will be hosting an international scholar convening here in North Carolina. Obviously, this is a big undertaking, so that will certainly be a focus of my work this upcoming fiscal year to make sure that we are planning appropriately as we are bringing all of these folks to our great states to learn from them as well as to share the work that we ourselves have been doing. I also wanted to take just a moment to touch on the Green Book Project, Oasis Spaces, as we call it. We had some time to talk about the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund grant work that we've done, the convenings that we've hosted virtually, as well as in South Carolina. And we have one upcoming on August 5th in Greensboro at the Greensboro History Museum. With this work, our hope is to identify, develop, and build infrastructure for a Green Book extant site mapping and marker program, and make sure that the folks who are doing this work have the resources. We understand that there are challenges in holding this work and what spaces folks can go to in order to find resources that are helpful for what they're doing. So our hope is to create a toolkit, create a set of best practices for this work, as well as to create the blueprint for a mapping and digital marking resources. So we're very, very excited about this. Another piece that I do want to call out in relation to the Green Book Project is that this summer we were excited to have another department HBCU intern join our team. Rosalind Kinlow, who you've likely seen in our meeting virtually today, was able to come on board. Rosalind is currently a master's student at North Carolina Central University. She is working to get her master's in history, and she has been working with us to research and craft additional essays on Green Book sites for our online web portal. So her time is soon to come to an end. I believe her last day with us is August 5th, but we've really been excited to have her on board, and just another space where we are working to create pathways and have students and folks on board with us throughout all of our work. So really, really excited to have her as part of our team. Another space that I won't steal too much of Akira's thunder, as she will be talking about this more in detail later on in our time today. But this fiscal year was really a time where we as a commission leaned into the continued formalization of how we are celebrating both Black History Month on Juneteenth on both a statewide, but also a department level. So we have seen that, these heritage months, because Juneteenth, we have joked, it's more than just a one-day holiday. It is quite the celebration. And folks have been looking to us to create resources. So I mentioned the landing pages that we created for both of these. Akira also spent quite a bit of time this year creating toolkits. Specifically for Juneteenth, we had a toolkit that was internal and external, recognizing that our colleagues in the department, some of them, this was a new holiday to be celebrating. We wanted to make sure that they had resources to create thoughtful, intentional celebrations for the people of North Carolina. And we really saw a great response for it. It was a means, in addition to the other things that Akira will be talking about, for us to, not just have a couple of programs, but to really maximize our resource and maximize the power of outreach across the state of North Carolina, supporting various celebrations, creating various resources for all of our constituents to be able to use. So we were very excited about that. I keep mentioning Akira. So she was able to join our team this year. Akira Harris, who you will hear from later on in our session, has been serving as our program coordinator, focused specifically on Black History Month and Juneteenth. She's been working with us on a full-time basis since January, though it is a temp solutions role. She has worked with us to design, create different resources, facilitate our Juneteenth Speakers Bureau, as well as serving in close collaboration with our DNCR marketing team. As was mentioned earlier, she previously worked with Governor Roy Cooper's Office of Public Engagement, where we worked with her previously on Black History Month celebrations. And I also want to call out that she recently graduated with a Master of Arts from the UNC Hussman School of Journalism and Media. So we are very proud of her and excited to have her on our team.
Good.
And last but not least, a new work that we are taking on is re-envisioning our logo as the commission. So for those of you who have known us for quite some time, you probably have known that our logo has been around for quite a long time. And we've started having some conversations about, what it would look like for us to create a new logo. We recognize that we as the commission, our work has grown significantly since the time that this logo was put together. And as we do things like creating more digital content, sponsoring events across the state, we want to be sure that we have a logo that is representative of the current and future stages that we see for the commission. Akira is quite the graphic designer. And while we have her on the team, we want to maximize her talents in terms of designing a new logo. This is something that we, as our staff team, will be talking about internally, so we can create some drafts and have them ready to present to you, our commissioners, so that we might get your feedback and make sure that we are choosing something that you also feel is representative of our work and our next stages of a commission. So we are very excited about this. This will be work during our next commissioner meeting in January. We will have those logos ready to present to you, logo options, and we're excited to receive your feedback. In the interim, if you do have any ideas or thoughts as we are beginning to shape this work, feel free to reach out and email me. I do believe you all have my contact information as I sent you materials prior to the meeting. So we do look forward to hearing from you. And with that, being cognizant of our time here, I do want to make a transition to our other presentations. Ashley, we're ready to hear from you.
All right, are we in afternoon currently? Okay, good morning, excuse me, everyone. My name is Ashley Adams. I am the trail coordinator for the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission. And today we're going to be taking a close look at the North Carolina Civil Rights Trail as well as our Freedom Roads Trail. Adrienne, you can move to the next slide. So our previous awardees and marker dedications, as people have mentioned earlier, we did have our Shelby sit-in marker dedication in February. That was attended by Commissioner Wallace as well as Commissioner Mckesson and Secretary Wilson in February. That was highlighted during their annual Black History Month celebration. They got some amazing images while they're at the ceremony. And so we're really excited to continue to move forward and continue to do this work, not only for our previous awardees and people who have already had their markers in the ground, but for those who are continuing to get their markers within our last round. I also want to mention that Ocean City Beach had their dedication ceremony previously over the July 4th weekend. It was attended by myself, Angela Thorpe, as well as Secretary Wilson and Commissioner Rhodes. I did not see you, however, I know that you were there. So we want to thank you for your time and your dedication to these ceremonies. Without you all, this would not work, and without our awardees and the efforts that they put in to these dedication ceremonies, it would not run smoothly. The dedication ceremony was followed by a 2-day jazz festival, which Angela and I both got the chance to attend as well. Unfortunately, the tropical storms tried to keep us from attending a lot of these events. However, the turnout was amazing despite the weather. They had a great turnout as far as numbers. People were excited to not only attend the Jazz Festival, but to attend the dedication ceremony. So I want to say a special thank you to the commissioners who were able to attend, as well as to Secretary Wilson, who was able to attend that ceremony as well. Moving forward, our upcoming dedication ceremonies include the Monroe Wade-ins, also known as swim-ins. Those will be held at their country club that the students actually tried to integrate during that time. So that will take place on July 28th. author Timothy Tyson, as well as 2 participants in the weigh-ins will be present, as well as myself and Adrienne Miranda and Ansley Wegner, who is over our North Carolina State Marker Program, who is also a committee member for our advisory committee for our North Carolina Civil Rights Markers. We also have Elizabeth City that is coming up next as well, as we continue to get notifications of marker dedications. Those will be taking place during their homecoming weekend on October 15th. So we look forward to attending with them, as well as learning more about the 1960s sit-ins that occurred while we are attending their dedication ceremony. So as Angela did mention earlier, we currently have 5 markers in the ground with 14 awardees. So we do look forward to our next round. And this particular round ends on August 19th. So we look forward to continuing to receive applications and look forward to having a 4th round within our marker, within our North Carolina Civil Rights Markers, excuse me. Adrienne, if you can move to the next slide, please. All right, these are some of the images from Shelby, North Carolina, from the dedication ceremony. As you can see, of course, our North Carolina Civil Rights Marker here on the my left, and as well as Commissioner Wallace and Commissioner Mckesson, who were able to attend that ceremony. Next slide, please, Adrienne. All right, and Ocean City Beach, of course, as you can see, their marker was not physically erected because of the storms and because of the turnaround time from the delivery. However, it is currently on its way to being placed in the ground. And you can see it if you ever decide to take a trip to Topsail Beach and dare to go over the bridge. I know some people have a fear of going over bridges there. However, I implore you to actually visit that site. It is literally not even a mile from the ocean, literally directly over the sand dunes. So it's a beautiful sight to see. And we implore you all to actually not only take a look at the Ocean City Beach marker, but the other markers that we have already in place. Adrienne, if you'll move to the next slide, please. All right. Of course, this is from our dedication ceremony with Secretary Reed, as well as Angela Thorpe. It was a star-studded event with a guest speaker, Rolanda. I do not remember her last name off of the top of my head. However, she did have a talk show in the 90s and was the guest MC for the dedication ceremony, as well as Mr. Floyd McKissick was also, Watts, thank you so much. They were also in attendance at the dedication ceremony. Adrienne, if you'll move to the next slide, please. All right. So the webinar and application workshop overview. The one thing that I did want to mention is that this round, we had a session of both our informational webinars that are normally available on our website, as well as application workshops. They were both successful, although we did not see the numbers that we initially saw within our first round. I'm thinking that's really because the information is already out there about the North Carolina Civil Rights Trail, but we do encourage people to still join us and to still get the information from each of those sessions. The informational webinars, we designed them to give just an overview of what the North Carolina Civil Rights Trail marker program is about and how to apply. While the application workshops were put into place during round 2 to help applicants through the application process and discuss the difference between primary and secondary sources, as well as it gives applicants a chance to work one-on-one with me through their application and ask more in-depth questions. excuse me, the application workshops thus far have been extremely successful, and I'm really proud of the work that has been happening with them, and that people are willing to sit through those 2-hour sessions and listen to the information that I have to share about what primary and secondary sources are and where they can find them. A lot of people who are applying to the North Carolina Civil Rights Trail Marker Program are not historians, they are not professors, they are regular everyday people who are just trying to put this information together, and we want to make it as comprehensive as possible and walk them through this process and make it as easy as possible on them. During this round, we had guest speakers who were previous awardees for both the webinars as well as the application workshops. This allowed applicants to get a chance to talk with someone who had already been through the process. Those guest speakers included Dr. Rita Joyner, who, as you can see at the picture in the bottom corner there, she was the applicant for the 1951 walkout for Akin High School in Kinston, North Carolina. As well as Mr. Rodney Pierce, who he previously applied in our first round. However, he was missing some materials and then reapplied in our second round and actually got 2 markers out of the process. So he was a guest speaker as well. And I did it in that way to allow people to see what it was like to initially go straight through and not have any issues versus someone who may have met a bump in the road and had to go back and regroup. So it gives people a chance to actually interact with those who have already been through the process and know the challenges and the rewards of going through the entire application process with us. So upcoming outreach and focuses for the fall. We are currently in the process of booking venues for in-person outreach. We are finally moving off of the virtual world and getting to see people face to face, which I'm excited about. We are focusing on larger areas as of this point because we currently don't have markers in our larger cities in North Carolina. That would include Charlotte as well as Durham. We're also focusing on Goldsboro as well. The one thing that we want to do is move off of the virtual platform. While we appreciate the virtual platform and it has done well for us, sometimes, especially with the commission, the one thing that we found that works is in-person outreach. And being able to talk to people in the community. Sometimes it gives a little bit more of a personal experience and gives a little bit more of a personal touch to allow people to know who we are, what we're doing, and how they can either apply for the North Carolina Civil Rights Trail or just pass the information on. Next slide, please, Adrienne. All right, so current applications. So we currently have 9 applications in hand with at least 6 more that will be coming in, hopefully more, fingers crossed. And we are looking to wrap up the application process. To highlight the portion that was just put in the chat, we actually have 2 from the West already. So we are looking to continue to highlight Western North Carolina as well as Eastern North Carolina and some central portion in the central portion of our state in order to get people to apply. Those we have received currently include 2 from Fayetteville, as well as Montreat and Black Mountain, Tarboro, Warren County, and 2 that were deferred from our last round, including James H. Jones, who is from Northampton County, as well as Hubert Arthur Eaton, who in Wilmington. Looking ahead, upon receiving all of our applications, we will be meeting with the advisory committee. I'm sorry, one second. Thank you. So moving forward, upon the advisory committee, upon meeting with the advisory committee, we will actually be determining who will move forward and receive an award, and who will not, or who can be deferred, or if they just need more information. Applicants will be informed by late September of the committee's decision. We do look forward to continuing to receive applications. As mentioned before, our application deadline is August 19th, with a fourth round coming, and we look forward to seeing applications, hopefully not on the last day, hopefully a little bit before that, so we can actually move through, so I can actually move through those applications and make sure that they have everything that they need, so they don't have to wait until the next round in order to apply. So thank you all for your time, and that's all for me today.
Thank you, Ashley, so much for that report. It looks like Dr. Brothers has a question before we lean into Amber Pelham's report. Dr. Brothers?
Thank you. Just a quick question. I saw that the William G. Pomeroy Foundation was a funder for the Ocean City marker. Are there continued plans for overall cultivation with the foundation for continued support across the state?
Absolutely, there are. So for those commissioners that are not familiar, the William G. Pomeroy Foundation is the private funder that is funding the North Carolina Civil Rights Trail. So they fund each and every Civil Rights Trail markers and the pole that they come on, up to 50 of those markers. The foundation has great interest in the work that we are doing around Green Book markers in North and South Carolina. As a funder, they're really interesting in that they like to be included in processes on the ground. And so they have been engaged in our Green Book work sessions. Again, they are very excited. And as we conclude our work with the National Trust for Historic Preservation, we'll re-engage with conversations or re-engage in conversations with the foundation around what a marker program for Green Book sites in North Carolina and South Carolina and potentially nationally can look like. So they're really grateful for what we've done here in North Carolina and look forward to continuing to support our work. Amber, it looks like the floor is yours. Go ahead and hop in.
Okay, everyone. Hello. Good morning. Still almost afternoon. My name is Amber Pelham. I am the research fellow for the Africa to Carolina project. I'm excited to share with you some updates regarding the Africa to Carolina initiative. And I just wanted to start off my presentation off with this clipping, this picture that I have here from the South Carolina Gazette. And the picture you're seeing here is part of some new research that I've been doing, conducting on one of the voyages called the New Market. And I found in the South Carolina Gazette recently that it disembarked in Wilmington. And that just goes to show you that there's still research being done, even though the exhibition is complete. There's still more research being conducted. And we also want to, encourage the community as well to, provide us insights on new information that they found about disembarkation in North Carolina. So the main goal of our exhibition is identifying these disembarkation points, but also it's also about framing a larger story of enslavement in North Carolina. So in my portion of the report, I'm going to be going over the exhibition itself, some major themes and goals, and also some current updates involving the exhibition and next steps in the Africa to Carolina initiative. You can go on the next slide, please. So the exhibit itself is going to be hosted at 7 sites. They're listed here. These sites are directly connected to the disembarkation sites of this enslaved Africans. So I'm referring to the various ports that the vessels entered carrying these enslaved persons. So Port Edenton, Port Bath, Port Beaufort, and the Port of Wilmington. And so right now the exhibition is currently in the stage of distribution. The two sites that have obtained their copies and actually displayed their copies are historic Edenton and Brunswicktown for Anderson. We are still in the process of distributing to the other sites. They're in different stages of the process. Some are in the finalizing stages, so they have a pickup date. They've set a pickup date to get their panels. And so we're excited about that. There's 6 panels in total. Certain panels are tailored to specific host sites depending on their location in conjunction to the port sites. For example, historic Edenton, Roanoke Festival Park, and Somerset Place Plantation are directly related to Port Edenton, also known as Port Roanoke. So they will have specific information for them because we want to tie in the local history of each port to each site. You can go to the next slide, Adrienne. So here are some pictures of the exhibit panels, one at historic Edenton and one at Brunswicktown Fort Anderson. And I'm excited because they look really good. They came out exactly how we wanted. The information is displayed beautifully. And we're just excited about, the types of audience members that are coming in to view these panels. For example, in historic Edenton, there was a first responders event, and they had our first responders come and take a look at the exhibition. And really glad that we got to display this information in this way, and that they can learn more about the disembarkation and enslaved Africa's life in North Carolina. You can go to the next slide. So what are the exhibit's goals? How do we take this information and use it to tell more of a comprehensive narrative? And one of the panels that you see here is one of the panels, and it's called Displacement and Placemaking in the Atlantic World. And in one of those sections, we do have a section titled Memory at Work, which discusses the generational impact of disembarkation. And that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about how disembarkation affected many generations. And we also want to give, the enslaved Africans a space and voice to tell their own stories, about how they came to North Carolina, how they were brought here. We chose to use in this particular panel, the WPA slave narratives, which are located in the Library of Congress's database, where individuals in North Carolina remember hearing stories about how their great-grandparents were captured and disembarked in North Carolina. For example, in that panel, there's a lovely picture of Miss Hannah Crasson, who remembers how her great-grandmother was stolen right out of Africa, she says, with a red handkerchief. And additionally, our goal is really to connect this history to the present day experiences of African Americans, which we do also by asking questions at the end of the exhibit. In what ways do you see African culture reflected in North Carolina and in your own life? How do you commemorate the stories and legacies of these individuals? You can go to the next slide. So here are some of the themes that we wanted to make sure we captured in our exhibit. And I think we've done a good job in accomplishing these goals. We made sure that we connected it to local stories, to the larger story of enslavement, focusing on the stories of Abraham Galloway and Harriet Jacobs and Edenton, for example. We want to understand the Native landscape. So we want to discuss the Native environments of both Africa and North Carolina before the transatlantic slave trade impacted them. To give a base for the change that will occur and how that impacted the North Carolina community and its descendants. And we do this by paying homage to the enslaved Africans' original heritage and culture. They come from very diverse ethnic groups, and we wanted to make sure that we, pointed out those ethnic groups, and then talk about, the different traditions that they had, that they brought over from their original lands. We also want to talk about, the genius of these enslaved Africans, or these Africans, because they brought knowledge of, agricultural innovation and, knowledge of animal husbandry and blacksmithing and fishing and all of these these major things that help grow the economy in North Carolina. So we definitely want to make sure our audience members understand that. The next thing is we want to explain the geographical migratory patterns of the slave trade by talking about the Middle Passage and how it relates to North Carolina. North Carolina is a small portion of this larger scheme of I would like to call it human trafficking. So trafficking humans to provide labor to this United States, and we also want to talk about how they treated the enslaved Africans on board the actual vessels before they, while they were embarking from their native lands to North Carolina. We also want to spark dialogue on distinct behavioral patterns that were implemented in their discipline and care of enslaved persons upon disembarkation and displacement. And we did that really by, really talking about and using first-person narratives. One of our major resources was Alexander Falconbridge's account of the slave trade. He was a surgeon on board these slave vessels, and he really detailed the really gruesome, horrific conditions that these enslaved persons would endure upon these vessels. And I also wondered in my research, how could another human being treat another human being like this? And a lot of these sailors had similar experiences, not the same, but similar experiences to the enslaved on board, as far as mistreatment, as far as being beaten, as far as being withheld wages, being withheld food, and things like that. Diseases running rampant. And in actuality, in one of the voyages that we focus on, the Hannah, it was called out that a year later that the captain was taken to court by his sailors because of the mistreatment that was taking place on board. Then we want to talk about the business of the slave trade. So we want to analyze the system of the slave trade. So displaying multiple elements of economic development of the slave trade and its effects transnationally, nationally, and locally. And so this panel shows the key economic figures in North Carolina who were in the business of the slave trade. We talk about, Edward Batchelor and Company, who was a major merchant in the New Bern area, who was responsible for bringing enslaved labor, a lot of enslaved labor, into North Carolina. And he was responsible for selling the enslaved persons on the ship, the Hope, who was brought into Union Point at their store, which is now Union Point Park in New Bern. And we also want to show how it affected labor relations as well as social relations in North Carolina. So we're talking about from the royal government, the Royal African Company, all the way down to these African slave traders who would, had responsibility in bringing enslaved persons over to North Carolina. We also want to talk about the legality of the slave trade. So examining and discussing legislation that, made it no less difficult to bring enslaved persons into North Carolina, but it did affect some of the record keeping during the years of ships importing enslaved Africans into the states. So it shows the complexity of the slave trade, as well as, why there are some unanswered questions that we don't know. And then we have displacement of Africans and its social effects. So showing the various places where those Africans might have been sold to, such as Somerset Plantation. We know that one of the voyages called the Jeanette was carrying 81 enslaved Africans over into Port Edenton for the Lake Company, which was responsible for building Somerset Plantation. And they were, commissioned there to provide slave labor, those 81 enslaved Africans. And so we also wanted to display some of the social implications of slavery that were, that were specific to North Carolina. And then lastly, we will talk about collective memory. And so we want to just make connections to the slave trade and disembarkation to issues that have been passed down to the present. So we want to examine how the slave trade has influenced our individual identities as well as our collective identities nationwide and locally. We can do the next slide. So feedback, our survey tool is completed. we've had favorable reactions from Historic Edenton. We're excited about that. And hopefully, throughout the survey tool being used, we can, have more feedback and find out what we can do better to tell these stories. You do the next slide. Sorry. And then briefly, our next steps in the journey of the Africa to Carolina initiative is our web portal. And our web portal we're very excited about. It's in its beginning development stages. And right now we're trying to closely knit it with the exhibition. So it still follows the same trajectory, still follows the same themes, talking about embarkation, disembarkation, and displacement. We have, is there to provide resources to help the audience kind of understand these concepts a little bit better. So we use things such as Slave Voyages introductory maps, UNCG's map of Walter Mitchell's seaborne slave trade of North Carolina, as well as, digital NC's historic newspapers, which I use a lot in my own research. So that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amber. And with that, Akira, the floor is yours.
Great. Well, officially, good afternoon, everyone. I know that we've kind of reached the end of our meeting time, so I'm going to be pretty quick with this presentation. We had a really robust program this year, so I encourage you to review the written report so you can find out even more details about some of the components within our programming. But for right now, we'll go to the next slide, and I'm going to cover some of the most interactive and engaging features of our Black History Month and Juneteenth programming. A lot of these elements garnered a lot of awareness and enthusiasm for the holidays as a whole. So those components were the Black History Month and Juneteenth Toolkit. We also had featured Black History Month honorees, our Ocean City Beach short film, along with our speakers Baru, and outreach and sponsorship. So we're going to go to the next slide and talk a little bit more about those. So the Black History Month Toolkit had a lot of resources that were available for not only constituents, but division partners as well. This included our read-in list, our Green Book project, My NC from A to Z companion guide, the North Carolina Indie Black Artist playlist, Ocean City video feature, the virtual North Carolina Civil Rights Trail, which we learned about earlier, and the Visit NCAAHC online, which garnered a lot of attention to our website, which was really helpful. I want to go more in detail about our read-in list, our playlist, and also our Ocean City video. So our read-in list was a comprehensive list of 20 books that were curated by the help of Abigail Glenn. She's the owner of Shelves Bookstore, along with other partnerships. This read-in list was a resource of books for not only middle youth, young youth, toddlers, adults. It had a lot of diversity and variety. So we garnered a lot of attention with that and a lot of great feedback with that and interaction. We also had our NC Indie Black Artist playlist with over 100 songs. This playlist had 17 shares, a lot of interaction and downloads from Spotify, 14 likes. That is really good to have people interact with this, this resource. It was fun. People were able to listen to music, find out about different artists and music happening around North Carolina. And it was not limited to one genre. We had R&B, hip hop, country, bluegrass, and so much more. We also honored 30 Black honorees working in the field of STEM. This was in partnership with Governor Cooper's team and very fruitful to talk about the leaders in STEM from North Carolina. You'll be able to learn even more about this once you read the report, but we were able to put together a video that just went through their biographies, the work that they've done, and that was really rich and fruitful. We also did the Ocean City Beach short film, and this was very exciting as we had a lot of enthusiasm around this video. We had more than 1,000 views on this YouTube video alone, and a lot of people commented, liked, and interacted with this video. Really excited about the fact that this type of history was being covered. So this lets us know that people are really interested in learning things like this, and that we can continue to hone in on these stories and tell it in this type of format. And then we're going to scoot over to the Juneteenth program. So the Juneteenth toolkit was very similar to the Black History Month toolkit, but I think the difference between this and something that Adrienne touched on earlier was the fact that this toolkit was really centered around helping our divisions, our partners, and even outside organizations develop their own Juneteenth holiday celebrations. This is a holiday, like Adrienne mentioned, that a lot of organizations are kind of just now hopping on the bandwagon, and others have been doing this work for a long time. And so we not only wanted to pay homage to the groups that have already done a lot of extensive work for a long time around Juneteenth, but bridge that connection to other organizations trying to do that work as well. So this toolkit kind of went through a bunch of historical and cultural contexts of the holiday, resources that were already available, and we created items like the Speaker's Bureau. So we're going to go to the next slide. I think we might have to skip a little bit. We'll keep going. So I'm going to kind of talk about this. And this was our Speaker's Bureau. We had 8 participants, both in NCDNCR networks and outside of NCDNCR networks, coming together who were willing to lecture and talk about Juneteenth, African American history, topics related to freedom seeking. And this garnered a lot of attention. A lot of people used this resource, and we were so happy that they did. We were able to have discussions, panels, events attended, where they were able to talk to our professionals and learn more about Juneteenth. Let's move forward so we can see even more. We also did outreach and sponsorship with 13 organizations. A few of those organizations received $2,000 in sponsorship along with memorabilia to help with their existing Juneteenth programs. So that included Juneteenth of New Bern, Capital City Juneteenth Celebration, Juneteenth of the Carolinas, which is the longest running Juneteenth festival in North Carolina, which was very exciting to work with them, learn from them. We also worked with Triad Cultural Arts, Triangle Cultural Arts Awareness Foundation, and Spectacular Magazine, along with the North Carolina State Capitol building. Some of these graphs, I'm not going to get too far into them because we're inching towards a few minutes after. But if you look through the report, you'll realize that we have had a lot of growth on social media. Adrienne touched base on this earlier, and that has shown through Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Let's move forward. Same with YouTube videos, you'll see a spike on the video postings of the Ocean City video feature during Black History Month was really great and effective. Let's move forward. And I did want to show you this graph. We were able to give out a survey for our Black History Month and Juneteenth toolkit, specifically for our Juneteenth toolkit. There was a lot of satisfaction. I did want to point out that we gave an option to say very unsatisfied to very satisfied, and the only 2 responses we got back were satisfied and very satisfied. So we were happy about that, and we're hoping to just continue developing toolkits, to continue developing these resources so that we can help with the development of Juneteenth programming and Black History Month programming. So with that, I will kind of wrap up. I'll give it off for us to close, but I do encourage you to look through that report so you can learn even more about what we've done with Black History Month and Juneteenth. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. It is indeed, I'm looking at the chat, amazing work that has been done by all of our staff And I really appreciated the reports from Ashley Adams, from Amber Pelham, and from Akira. This is the kind of work that needs to be done. I also appreciate everyone's patience in letting us go over just a wee bit. And with that, really, what has been said is what has been done and what continues to be done. So as you can see, this is an exciting time for the commission. We look forward to what happens between now and January and for all of your input at that time. This was a really great meeting and very informative, and I truly appreciate all of what you all have been able to accomplish with the staff that you have, and I appreciate our commissioners being so engaged. This is what makes this commission run smoothly and work well. So I thank you. This is truly excellent, and I appreciate our visitors, Carrie and Quinn. We look forward so much to having you work with us and making our commissions the standout commissions they can be for the nation. We are the example, and we're all going to do this together as community. So stay in touch with Angela and with Adrienne and with each other, and let us know what you are up to. With that, unless there are no other comments from Angela or Adrienne. And yes, Rosalind, we appreciate your participation as one of our commission people. We've got commission people. So on that note, at 12:11, I would like to end this meeting with much appreciation.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone. I enjoyed the session today.
Wonderful.
Yes, indeed.
Good
Be
session.
good.
Adrienne.
All right.
Take
Be
care.
safe.
Thank you.